are you listening to? Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn.
Welcome to Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. We have a rock star candidate that just blew away the recent Salt Lake County Republican convention.
Yes.
I mean, it just rocked the house. And so this is an exciting candidate. And in a race that maybe sometimes is a little sleepier than some of the races, like, okay, she just took this up a notch, a big
Yes.
notch. So we have with us tonight, we have Danielle Ahn running for Salt Lake County District Attorney.
Yeah.
But why? Because he's so good at everything he does. And the state of safety and,
Yeah.
crime is awesome in Salt Lake.
Well, and I don't expect any riots like we had a couple years ago pre-election.
Cars burning.
Yeah, I don't expect that to happen. So I guess it's
Red
kind
paint
of okay.
on DA buildings.
Yeah, if we don't have good enforcement of the law, I'm okay with it. I feel safe.
So do we really need her?
Yeah. Do we really need a DA at all? Or the police?
Okay. Let's bring Danielle.
Sure. If you guys like the way things are, you like murders going up by 40%, if you like violent crimes going up by more than 100%, if you like only 30% of the victims of sexual assault cases being screened, then yes, go ahead and stick with the status quo. If you actually believe in law and order and the Constitution and all the things that give us the rights and freedoms and enjoyments that we have, then yes, please vote for me, Danielle Ahn.
Okay. Well, you really did. You really did make a great splash at the convention.
Thank you.
That was exciting. That was really fun.
Yes.
So you just threw out a bunch of statistics, and is this crime and these rising crime rates, are they concentrated in any particular area of the county?
So there is some concentration, but it's difficult to get data because the current incumbent, my opponent, refuses to release that data. So based on the data that we've been able to gather from UPD and the Utah State crime reports, it does tend to orient itself to northern parts of the county. So you're thinking Kearns, West Valley, Salt Lake City itself, South Salt Lake. As a matter of fact, Salt Lake City was just added to the list of the top 100 most dangerous cities in America.
Wow.
We rank as number 80, just behind a few cities in Iowa, but right under there is South Salt Lake as well. So, I mean, there's some of the major cities you would anticipate. Salt Lake City is not one of them. But it's pretty spread out. Part of the reason that we don't have the crime statistics beyond my opponent not actually giving them to us is it's difficult to actually go through and do the research and figure out, okay, which crimes have been pled out and to what extent those crimes have never gone to trial, or which crimes have never received charges. The vast majority of crimes that are occurring right now, the perpetrators are not being charged. They're being booked and released.
So I have a question about that because does that have anything to do with the JRI that was passed, 5-6 years ago, the Justice Reinvestment Act? I know there were concerns expressed by law enforcement that we would see so much pleading down that it would create problems for counties and cities. Are you seeing that? What do you think? Why is this happening?
I would want to attribute it to that, except you see the increase in crime. All of that information is available at da4da.com. You can go and check it out there. I have links to all of those sources, but you can see the trajectory just continually going up since Gill took office. So no, I don't attribute it to any particular bill or piece of legislation. I attribute it entirely to the DA's policies. He has a policy of being soft on crime. I believe as well, of course, in reformation. I think that everybody deserves a chance. Any good Christian would believe that. But that being said, you don't get a third, a fourth, a fifth, and then a sixth chance. Yeah. And you certainly don't wait around until someone gets stabbed violently to the point that they're murdered to actually charge them. What's been happening is the DA has implemented a policy of only trying extreme violent offenders and only bringing charges against extreme violent offenders. So the process as it works currently, I don't know how much your listeners know. You all seem very well educated, and it seems like you have a great, listener base. But a lot of people, even most attorneys, don't understand how the process works. So let's say I have dolls. I love object lessons. So here's our perpetrator, okay? And our perpetrator gets arrested by the police, and his case is handed over to the DA's office, okay? So the DA gets to decide whether or not they want to bring charges. After reviewing doing what's called a screening process. They'll look at the police report, they'll call victims, they're supposed to interview victims, they're supposed to interview witnesses, they're supposed to get all of the facts. And then once they have all the facts, they decide which charges are appropriate under the law to bring against the perp. Well, what has been happening is the perpetrator gets arrested, a police report is filed with the DA's office, and the DA's office does nothing. That's what's happening. So what ends up happening then is they're just released back into the public, and there is no record, there is no paper trail, and there's no way to track it. What this is called it's called the black box of prosecution. The prosecutor has very wide discretion to decide which cases to bring, how to bring them, what charges, and whether or not they want to offer a plea deal. I think it's telling that the current DA spent more money that he was allotted through the county on training his prosecutors on plea deal negotiations than training them on trial prep, which one of the exit interviews, so there's a bunch of exit interviews that I'll make available on my website as well, that were produced and given over to the media last year. These exit interviews in 2021 all said the same thing. We're leaving. 31% said that they were leaving because there was a lack of training, a lack of support, and a lack of policy that actually allowed them to do their jobs, which is to pursue justice.
Yeah.
So, I have a good friend that lives in Salt Lake City, and a couple times she called me. I went to her area of the town because she was having active property crimes, and there was an absolute stand-down order for the police on property crimes. And so she's got people climbing over her fence, through her fence. She's a single mom, and they are walking all through her backyard. Wow. They're going through cars. They're on her front porch, and this is a concerned and frightened person. But that Salt Lake City, that is even a mindset.
Yeah,
a mindset that they're going to stand down on property crimes, and that there's. And
we don't expect that here. Like, no. I'm shocked when you tell me this.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Because that is not acceptable to the public here.
Right. And I think that people don't always understand that discretionary piece of the DA.
Yeah.
I think sometimes they think the DA is a functionary and that process is guided by law and administrative or criminal procedure but it's the discretion at the outset. It's whether they move forward with that. And then once they're moving along and processing the crime, that is, pretty guided by laws and rights and things, but that they do have that discretion at the outset. So if you're the guy who doesn't even want to prosecute in the first place, or you're soft on crime, or you're only going after those, most violent crimes. So would you say that is a particular mindset? Is it unique to your partisan race?
It's not a mindset, it's a policy. It's a stated policy of the DA. He said it once, he said it a million times. He wants to reorient resources to reforming people, reforming individuals. He thinks that these property thefts just aren't as important, that these people, are, I don't know what he thinks, right? I'm not a mind reader, but that must be what he thinks. I mean, the police are just doing the best that they can. They have to prioritize crimes and prioritize investigations. So if you're being told by the DA's office, we will not press charges unless it is an extreme violent offender. Yeah. Okay. Why would you as a police officer spend 7 hours investigating a crime for, let's say, a car break-in, or let's say it's grand theft auto, because these are real cases that are occurring currently. We'll have cases of grand theft auto, and the police say, look, I've got to be honest with you. I don't have time to come and deal with this right now. I'll take a statement. We'll refer it to the DA for charges. Normally, we would dust for fingerprints, assuming they find the car. And this actually happened to a constituent out in, I want to say it was Taylorsville. I saw it on their community page. They were told, yeah, we found your car, but we're not going to dust for fingerprints because we reserve that only for, violent crime cases. So sorry, we don't know who stole your car, but you have it now, even though it's completely thrashed and useless.
Yeah.
Enjoy your life. And this is happening on DUIs. This is happening on porch theft, which, by the way, is a felony. It should be treated as a felony, and it's not. You go and steal someone's mail, that's a felony. So we have porch thieves, we have break-ins, we have people. I watched a video. If you guys go to Alpha Ammunition, if you need really great bullets, they're a phenomenal company. They are downtown, and they're on Paramount Avenue, which is right next to one of these resource centers, which is really an emergency homeless shelter. Mm-hmm. And this emergency homeless shelter has adopted a policy of not calling the police. And not involving the police with events that occur within the shelter, whether it be a rape, whether it be a violent assault, whether it be drug deals going on within the shelter. All of these things are occurring currently. And no one's doing anything about it because, as you were saying, most people don't see it, especially if you've never been homeless, if you've never been one of these victims. The vast majority of victims of violent crimes or crimes in general are the homeless, the minorities, those who are already suffering, okay? They are feeling the very real effects of this, and anyone who owns a business downtown, they're very aware of it. It is so bad that on North Temple, the community had to get together and they pay a private security company $10,000 a month to patrol their streets and to keep them safe because there are not enough police to actually go out there and do it.
Yeah.
And the police are exhausted. They're fleeing their jobs.
Yep.
They don't want to do the work anymore because every time they catch the bad guy, they'll catch him again.
Yeah.
They'll catch him again in 5 minutes. They'll catch him again in an hour. And the story we always hear is, well, there's no space in the jail. Well, get space in the jail.
Yes.
It's none of your business. You're the DA. Your job is to enforce the law. You guys hear about these Soros DAs out of LA, out of Chicago, out of New York, and you're looking at the effects of that right now. Most people don't realize Utah is right there. Salt Lake City is right there. Salt Lake County is right there right now. We're not talking, oh, it's going to be as bad as San Francisco in 6 months. No,
we're there.
Watched.
We're there.
Yeah, we're there. I watched from Alpha Ammunition's own security footage because they document all of these things. They hand it over to the DA. Nothing happens. So they just have this documented footage hoping that a new DA comes in and actually does something with it. So they showed me this one video of a woman who was high on drugs, presumably because she was half nude, and she was climbing up an 8-foot chain link fence with barbed wire on the top, wielding a machete to try and get into their store to who knows what she was going to do. She jumps down off the fence, rips her arm open, and just goes around wielding the machete like a baton and comes up to the resource center. He showed me video of 2 drug dealers stopping in the middle of the road, and I kind of want to post this because deep down in my heart, it's a little entertaining. But these 2 drug dealers would be, MF fighters, UFC fighters, get out of their car and they start boxing just right there, fighting over who's going to be selling drugs or prostitutes on the corner there. And when we were sitting there, I was watching the security video because they have security, they have to, all throughout the perimeter of their location because there's been so many attempted burns, and I mean, they've tried to burn down the place. They've tried to assault the owner, all of his employees. Anyway, as we're sitting there, we see a truck drive up, a semi-truck. And the owner turns to me and he says, watch this. So I watch and I see a girl who, she can't be older than 16, 17, comes out, gets up into the bed of the truck, leaves. He says, don't worry, she'll be back in an hour. So we have blatant drug use going on the street during the daytime. We have people wielding machetes, people assaulting others. There was a stabbing in Salt Lake City that occurred. And this was against minorities, mind you. So why on earth this man wasn't charged? Why on earth they didn't pursue anything with him is beyond me. But stabbers are a huge problem in Salt Lake City, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. I can think of 3 cases off the top of my head where they violently assaulted people, stabbed them, and it took them almost murdering someone for them to finally end up in jail.
This is crazy.
Wow,
I mean, this is crazy.
And we nobody's covering this though. Here's the thing. To Danielle's point, we are hearing about it in some of the big cities, right? But nobody's talking about it here.
Right. And I mean, it's our capital city. It's our capital county.
Yeah.
And are you watching the sort of windows blacked out RVs that came into town, rolled into town about 2 years ago? And doing spot checks on those, we found that about 30% had off-grid sex offenders. So Salt Lake City as a city has hung the banner, the welcome banner for the world. Bring us your tired, your poor, and your sex offenders, and park all throughout our city because we're not going to ask any questions.
Yeah.
And we're not going to patrol. We're not going to police, and that is not the fault of the police.
No, but let me say something. All of these things that are being described are the very types of things that Greg Hughes' speaker cracked down on when he cleaned up the homeless situation. He leaves and everything has fallen apart. Everything. And
these are policy. To Danielle's point, these are policy decisions. They're deliberate decisions.
They are deliberate decisions because I remember being there when a whole lot of discussions were taking place up at the state capitol about making sure that there was room to put offenders. So there wasn't this, write a ticket, they throw it on the ground because they know nothing's going to happen. You've given them a ticket, they don't have to show up. No one's hauling them down to jail. There was a lot of additional funding that was given in order to open up jail space and put these guys in. There's jail space, I assume it's still the same, that is currently not being used. Right? Not being used,
correct.
that is available within the county. And that's before we even send criminals out to other counties where we have at times entered into agreements for them to house, people as overflow. But everything fell apart when there wasn't a leader saying, this is the way this is going to go down. And we are going to enforce the law. And we're going to consider not only, and again, this is the speaker who supported JRI as well. But we are not going to just look out for the criminals. We're going to look out for the regular citizens who are being victimized over and over and over every single day in our city and throughout our state.
So I have a question for you. I just had a discussion with a state senator this week who said that criminality does not follow the paths of least resistance, which goes against what I studied in my criminology degree, but that you don't see increased criminality and crime when there are softer DAs. And that is so counterintuitive to me. And
I would say
that's state
false.
to state, jurisdiction to jurisdiction. But he absolutely disagreed that crime will follow, the paths of least resistance.
Okay, I want Danielle's thinking on this.
Okay.
But let me say
Reaction
before we
was
go
awesome.
there, right? As somebody, I don't know if we've talked about this, but I talk about this all the time. As somebody who grew up in upstate New York, when I was growing up pre-Giuliani, we would not go to the city. It was a disaster.
Yeah.
I have a brother 12 years younger than I am, and my family would go to the city by then. It was post-Giuliani. We have now descended from what I hear. I haven't gone back. I was going to go back, but it was COVID. I have heard it's looking pretty pre-Giuliani now. And that has everything to do with the level of enforcement of the laws. So Danielle, give us your take.
The facts don't follow that argument. I mean, the evidence is not there to support that argument. I've heard that argument from Gill himself, right? That's this whole criminal justice reform mindset. And the theory goes, well, crime is a matter of necessity or a lack of education or crime is a result of society's failure, right? No, crime is a result of policy failures. That's the truth. Crime is a result of criminals not wanting to follow the law. Period.
Choices.
You can dress it up You can put lipstick on that pig as much as you want. The reality is you are never a victim of circumstances. You are a victim of crime. You are a victim of a crime. Either a criminal has abused you, molested you, raped you, robbed from you, stolen from you, tricked you, defrauded you. There are many criminals out there, and the vast majority of them go unheard, unsung, never recognized, because we all say, oh, well, that's society's problem. We all failed that person. And the focus is not on the victims. If you talk to the victims about the crimes that are occurring, if you ever talk to a victim, they'll tell you that 1, these criminals are walking free, 2, they're reoffending, and 3, they never feel like what they have to say mattered. Because they're never included in the process, even though in the state of Utah, they have statutory rights and they ought to be included. They simply are not.
Okay, it's time to get tough on crime, man.
Well, yeah, I really had no idea that these policies were a lot of what is feeding the change that we're seeing.
Absolutely.
I just didn't realize it was that bad here. But it makes sense because I'm seeing the change on the street. So, question for you, Danielle. We also want to have a discussion and would appreciate your take on leaking out of the Supreme Court. Have we ever seen this before? That
no.
A decision months before, when was that going to be released in June?
I don't know, but so you would be the county's top lawyer. So, yeah.
Wait, what?
So as DA,
Yes.
Danielle would be the county's top lawyer, right? Sort of.
That's correct. I would be the chief prosecutor for the entire county, and I am responsible and accountable to the county.
Okay, so but I want to have a discussion about the Supreme Court leak,
Right.
right? So we have it sounds like there was a vote back in February, a 95, I think is what I saw, a 95-page decision, majority decision written, the draft, and somebody decided to leak that to the press, which is pretty unprecedented. Give us your thoughts about that.
Pretty unprecedented, as in it's never happened in American history. And when I say it's never happened in an American history, I mean never before has a draft opinion, before it's ready to be released, before it's finally ready to be voted on. So let me tell you a little bit about the process. Generally, what happens is after oral argument, the justices will come together and they will take an initial vote. Okay. Based on that initial vote, usually it's recommended that one justice or another writes the majority opinion, and one justice or another will write the minority opinion if a minority opinion exists. So in this situation, it's clear that the majority opinion seemed to have been circulated in February. So this would have been sometime after they had made their initial votes on how this was going to work out. So it was circulated in February. We get this leaked last night. The only other time in American history that we've had something even remotely similar was the Dred Scott case, which led to the Civil War here in America only a few months after that decision came down. That decision was leaked to the president, I believe President Buchanan. I'm going to fact check myself on that later, but I'm pretty sure it was. Anyway, that president then went and used that opinion to politically push the opposing party onto his side in terms of how they were going to vote on slavery at the time. So this is why now I'll entertain your questions for a second before I go off on a tangent. So I'm happy to get up on the soapbox and rant because it's disturbing to me that every single attorney, every single politician, every single person that I speak to talks about the contents of the opinion rather than talking about the crime and the great disservice and sin that occurred in the leak itself.
And now we haven't mentioned yet what that leak was and what the case was. I mean, I think we have to just at least frame that as it looks to overturn Roe v. Wade. But regardless of what that case is, now what is the risk now that has happened?
Sure. So in the Constitution, as I'm sure all your listeners are very well aware, the Congress has the power of the pen and the purse, right? They get to write the laws. They get to put money into things. That's what Congress does. And the executive branch has the power of the sword. Okay, they get to go and enforce those laws, and the ways that they enforce them are kind of up to them, depending on how the law is written. The Supreme Court only has one force, one power, and that power is derived from their legitimacy. That's it. Either we believe that their ruling is final and that it is the law of the land now, or we don't. But there is nothing to enforce basically what the Supreme Court decides besides our belief that, yes, the Supreme Court decision was correct. It was based on a thorough analysis of the facts and the law on that particular case without consideration of the public opinion or the policy aspects to occur after. They're simply looking at the law and looking at the way that the Constitution is drafted, looking at the exact wording. There's a case that deals with an extra comma, okay, that the Supreme Court heard about. As a matter of fact, the Second Amendment has this issue, right? There's comma, 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 no comma. So what does that mean, right? It's that granular. So to me, the Supreme Court, not just to me, to everyone, the reason that the Supreme Court looks like a Greek temple is because these people are the closest things to gods that we'll ever have. That's the reality. Within their hands decides the fate of an entire nation. They can decide if someone lives or dies. That's an incredible amount of power and purity that we give to them. And within the courtroom is a sacred temple that when you walk into it, the words that you speak to the Supreme Court last forever. They will echo throughout time. That is eternal. That is beautiful. That is holy. It's the only thing that we hold sacred in America. And what happened last night was a complete trampling of that. What they did is they threatened, and when I say they, I mean Politico and whoever the leaker is. I hope they should absolutely be held responsible, and Politico should absolutely be held responsible for what is about to occur. So here's my theory about what's going to occur. Think of it this way. Let's say that it was a question of whether or not peanut butter sandwiches are legal. We're just going to trade out the subject here. Okay. Everybody loves peanut butter sandwiches. You would think. No, a lot of people like almond butter sandwiches. So the question is whether or not peanut butter sandwiches should be legal. And the court says, yes, they shouldn't be legal, but we think that the states should decide whether or not they should be legal or not. Let's give the power back to the people. That's their decision. Or at least we think it might be. Because guess what? We never got their final decision. What we got instead is we got a draft decision that was released during an election year 2 months prior to the time that they were supposed to make a final vote, a final decision, go up and carve up that opinion and actually release it to the public. So we now will never know whether or not that decision was based on the law or whether or not it was based on an implicit threat that if they didn't do what the mob wanted, that they wouldn't be published in the court of public opinion and that they wouldn't lose. I mean, the legitimacy is gone. It doesn't matter what they do now. So if they're entrenched and they say, okay, I'm going to change my vote, everyone on one side will say, you changed your vote because you're a coward. You didn't want to vote that way. You did it because you're a coward. If they don't change their vote, they'll say you're a coward. That's why you didn't change your vote. You were afraid that people would do this. Yep. And then on top of that, it gives Congress the opportunity to try and preempt the Supreme Court. So now the Supreme Court has zero power. That is what happened last night. That is why I'm so furious. And that's why I'm so incensed that no attorney is talking about this, that no politician is taking the time. I would question the moral compunction, the loyalty of any politician who does not stand up right now and say, everybody be quiet. Be quiet until the court's decision is final. Do not go out and protest. Do not go out and try to persuade the court. Do not force the court. Stop trying to enter that sacred space. Stop trying to trench onto that holy temple. Stop it.
Well, but if,
no one is doing that right now.
Of course, there was a motive behind the leak, which we're not in the brains of the people who did it. We're not sure who did it yet, but it was to defile this space.
That's right. Because guess what? We haven't had a leak on any cases about peanut butter sandwiches.
Never.
Right?
No.
Right. Yep.
We've never had a leak about any
Right.
Any cases ever in the history of the Supreme Court there has never once been a leak of a draft opinion to the public.
So I woke up to this morning to a clip from a mainstream media morning news show that was criticizing that this was the last institution, the final institution that is now corrupted. But their claim for why it's corrupted is because it overturned
because
Roe v.
of
Wade.
the decision.
It's a bad court and a corrupt court because of the substance of what they did. While you're talking about, and rightly so, and there are some people talking about it about how procedurally wrong this is, and the implications of it, but yeah, one side is saying that the problem is the decision they made. The other side is saying the problem is that this leaked.
Yeah, but can I say too, I shouldn't spend any time on Twitter, but I had 5 or 10 minutes today that I did spend on Twitter. And I was fascinated by what I'm seeing, the calls for insurrection coming from the left. They're literally
the call that this is insurrection, that what the court decided is insurrection. That's what they said on the mainstream media.
That's interesting. But I'm seeing journalists and people on the left saying, oh yeah, F yeah, burn it all down. Literally, the people who say that marching in protest at the Capitol and having guards let you in is insurrection, but using the phrase fight like hell and burn it all down is not.
Yeah.
When they get a decision.
You remember the get out there in the street, confront them in the street, confront them in the restaurant. That wasn't accelerationist speech. That wasn't hate speech. That was completely guarded by the First Amendment. But you making a spicy meme, that isn't.
That's right. I mean, we do know that's where we are. And I think that this is going to have to be addressed, because your point about loss of faith in institutions, it's gone. And doing this has caused it. This really is the last one to fall. We've lost faith in the medical community. We've lost faith in government officials at every level.
Education,
after what we've seen.
Criminal
Education.
justice.
I mean, name them.
Media.
Seriously, the Supreme Court, for a staffer or a clerk on the Supreme Court to have done this.
Or a justice.
Yeah.
Or a justice. We don't know.
But on the substance of it, there's a lot of rejoicing too, that this is the blessing, because a lot of us have hoped and prayed that this conclusion would come to, but now it's marred. We don't know what happens now.
I know. I'm not going to say it, but I know what happens now. And what's coming has been reflected in the attitudes of tweet after tweet after tweet that I saw from the left today. They literally mean what they say.
Well, yeah.
Because we've seen it before.
And they load buses and they show up.
Yes, they do.
Red paint.
Oh yeah, I'll mention the red paint real quick. So what this is all meant to do, though, and I'll sum it up really quickly.
Okay.
What this is all doing, whether or not it's a concentrated, planned effort or not, what this is doing is causing chaos.
Yep.
And from this chaos, people lose faith in the justice system. They lose faith in the Supreme Court. They lose faith in the law, and they demand that we institute a new law, that we throw away the Constitution altogether and start again. That is the plan. That is what is happening right now. And if you don't believe me, let's talk about the red paint. So on the one hand, we have a prosecutor, talk about confusion and chaos. On the one hand, we have a prosecutor, a DA, who we don't even have to talk about no cash bail because he just won't file charges. People go in and out, no problem, right?
Yeah.
So what does it matter? So we have a DA who's not prosecuting people who are doing drugs in the street, raping, molesting kids, basically holding off and delaying cases. There's one case out of West Valley of a gentleman, not a gentleman, I shouldn't call him a gentleman. He's a monster as far as I'm concerned, but I'll wait till he's convicted or until he goes to trial. He was accused of molesting children, serial child molester. He had charges brought against him 2 years ago. It's now been 2 years, still no trial, and it's been delayed by the DA's office.
Wow.
Since that time, he's molested more children. Okay. So on the one hand, we have that. On the other hand, we have protesters who go down to the DA's office and demand justice because in their mind, justice wasn't served. This was not a justified shooting. They're going to go and let their voices be heard. And hey, by all means, do it. Well, they decided to also destroy the building in the process and throw red paint all over the building and break some windows, maybe start a fire here or there, but that never escalated to an actual fire because the building's made out of stone and glass. So I don't know how they thought that was going to go. But anyway, the point is that we have laws for that, right? And the crime in that situation, what you recommend is that they pay whatever is necessary to clean up and to repair the damage. Maybe some community service. Maybe it rises to a year in jail. Who knows, right? I don't know all the specific facts. What I do know is that the DA should not be bringing charges in the first place because the DA in that case is the victim. What I do know is that if they do bring charges, they should match the crime that actually occurred.
Yeah.
And what I do know is none of that happened. What happened instead is that Gill decided to charge the individuals who went and destroyed the building. And not only did he charge them, he enhanced their charges with gang offenses. So they would spend a lifetime in jail. One person, a lifetime in jail just for buying a can of paint.
Yeah.
There was an uproar. The ACLU stepped in, started to represent the protesters. And then, and only then, did the DA hand that case over to a special prosecutor where it should have been the entire time.
Okay, so Danielle, what does the race look like?
For DA?
Yep.
So it looks like this, right? So I go out, I meet people, I talk to people, I educate people. That's what a lot of it is, right? Please go to my website, da4da.com. You can also find me all on social media. If you just search Danielle Ahn, I'll come up pretty quickly. You can watch my video there. I issued a campaign ad, right out the gate. I did my own research. I wrote it. I executed it. I memorized it, and I meant it. Please watch that video.
It's the best political ad,
Yes,
at least in Utah, if not regionally, and whatever. It's an amazing ad. So
Nationally, it's the best.
So people go watch the ad and click the donate button. Powerful incumbent DAs being challenged. That's not easy. So
not easy.
So Danielle's going to need your help. She needs you to put a sign in her yard. So
Yes.
So go to the website and ask for a sign. Open your wallet and let's help Danielle.
Thank you so
Please
much.
do. And
Go ahead.
spread and share the message. I think that's the key thing, right? So share my video on social media. Tell your friends about me. Tell your family. Go out there. Go and let people know why this is such a big deal. If you've been the victim of a crime, please call me, right? I would love to have you go and meet Gill in person and thank him for what he did to you. Because he said in
Is there a timer?
Okay.
We went over our 40 minutes.
Oh, you know what? This was such a great discussion. I'm really excited.
Oh, I didn't know it.
I'm really, that's why we had the countdown. Okay, we're slow. We're slow. No, I'm really excited about Danielle.
She's an amazing
last
candidate.
time around, there was somebody who challenged the DA, a Republican.
Also a very good candidate.
Yes, did well, but couldn't make it. Let's make sure that does not happen this time. We need change.
Right.
So thanks for joining us for this episode of Straight Talk with Kim and Carolyn. Please like us, share us, talk about us, comment on our page on social media. We are on any place you get your podcasts, Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and thank you, Fosmu, for all your work.
Not a problem.
And your not so subtle countdown that we still didn't get. So anyway, thank you so much, Danielle. I'm excited about that race.
Yeah.